Welcome into Sports Memo's betting podcast with Teddy Covers. I am Drew Martin. This is the opening line report each and every Monday right here on the Sports Memo Wager Talk YouTube channel, also wherever you're downloading your podcast. Teddy, happy Monday morning to you.
Hey, Drew, how you holding up, buddy?
All things considered, Teddy, I'm okay. I got my health as of right now and just treading water here, Teddy. What about you, man?
Sure. I'll tell you what. This is probably the highlight of my week right now, doing this podcast, which is unfortunate. Last week kind of sucked. I was a little bit depressed. I was down. I was following NFL free agency and reading everything I could on COVID-19. And, this week at least I got a whole bunch. I made lists of stuff I got to get done, and this one I'm going to get done Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So at least I think I'm a little bit more prepared to actually accomplish something this week than last week. I think a lot of us were a little shell-shocked. We've never been in this spot before. I haven't been unemployed in a really long time. I was trying to figure it out. I was like, it was the summer of 2000 was the last time that I didn't have a job for any stretch. So it's been a while, and that first week was, it's been weird. That said, it's Monday morning, and I got a whole list of stuff I want to get done this week, and we did follow. Again, we're tracking the lines. We're tracking NFL free agency as closely as we can. Last week, so I certainly have some ideas about where the markets are going to move and what teams got better and what teams didn't. But I don't know. What was the question you asked me? I'm doing okay, Drew.
Okay, sounds like
I feel better. I feel better today than I last week was just one of those weeks you just write it off. You're like, hey, a lot of weird things happened. I didn't get squat done. I'm not going to sit here and all right, this week's going to be the same. You got to get up and start moving, and so far so good for a Monday morning.
All right, Teddy. And yeah, I mean, guys, we got the agenda here in terms of we'll hit questions at the end. We appreciate everybody on Twitter reaching out at Teddy_covers and at Drew Martin Bets with any questions you want us to answer on this podcast. Also, going forward, feel free to reach out to us with any questions each and every Monday. We got winners and losers of free agency in the NFL. We got we'll try to make a number here of when the NFL season starts and ends, if it's all on time. Also, college football games of the year, and then we will hit those questions. Teddy, one thing that always stuck with me, my manager at JP Morgan, the sales manager, he would always say, don't let a bad day become a bad week. Don't let a bad week become a bad month. And if you start having bad months, you're in real trouble. So that just always kind of stuck with me. So hopefully that can help you, Teddy.
Well, and it's very true in the handicapping world as well. We talk about the concept of, the fresh start every day or a fresh start every week, and the lines pop every morning or, every night. And you have to, in doing this over the long term, you really have to, and it's a Rob Vino quote, you need the mentality of an NFL cornerback, which is no short-term memory whatsoever. Whatever happened yesterday is gone, and it's about this play and this day, and you're 0-0 today, and what are you going to do? So that makes a ton of sense in the don't let a bad day become a bad week, and definitely don't let a bad week become a bad month. As a handicapper, many of us have learned that lesson the hard way. And as a person, I try to avoid that mistake.
Yeah. And Teddy, we can talk about like when some sports are going to be starting here, at least our number on when that. But first, want to start off with NFL, free agents here. We got some winners, some losers. Tom Brady making a move, obviously the headliner there. But there's other moves as well, Teddy. I'll just throw it over to you, man. You got any hot takes, anything you want to throw out there about NFL free agency winners and losers?
Sure. I mean, and again, right now, it is only a piece of the process. My NFL off-season grades come from, I tend to give them after the draft, because you say, all right, what'd you do in free agency and what'd you do in the draft? You put those two pieces together, and did this team fill their holes, or did this team go into the training camp with a bunch of holes still? That said, early in free agency, I mean, the obvious winner is Tampa Bay. When you bring a 6-time Super Bowl champion onto your team in Tom Brady, and say what you want about Jameis Winston. It's very interesting. We'll talk about Winston and Cam Newton in a minute. Two former number ones who literally have no job and no takers right now. Nick Foles is getting hired. But Jameis and Cam can't seem to do that right now. But certainly Tampa at or near the top of any list for a team that has catapulted themselves from okay into, hey, this team's going to be competing for Super Bowls. this year. I think there's no question about the Bucs. And Arizona's another team, and what maybe their biggest move wasn't in free agency per se, as opposed to the trade, the trade they made for DeAndre Hopkins. But every move Arizona's made has been we're going to be better this year type of move. So Arizona and Tampa Bay, we've seen two teams that the markets already have been paying attention to in terms of their free agency moves, and both those teams make a lot of sense to me as teams that have notably gotten better. When you talk about a loser, again, I hate to make fun of Nick Foles, but if you're a Bears fan, are you comfortable with this Trubisky-Foles competition right now on a team that has everything else in place to make a run? What Chicago has done, and again, they haven't, and the moves that they haven't made on their offensive line have stood out to me as well. I don't think the Bears are a team I've been impressed with, and the Lions are another team in that same division. A Lions team that, in theory, has the quarterback to make some noise. When you look at that roster now compared to where it was, let's say, a year ago, it looks to be trending in the wrong direction. I've not been impressed with the news coming out of Detroit in recent weeks as well. So there's a quick winners and losers. There's two winners, there's two losers. Those all four stand out to me as teams that have noticeably gotten better or not gotten better over the course of the initial part of free agency.
In Teddy, just to follow through those, a lot of firepower, kind of a unique offense they're running there. And I'm with you. I mean, definitely, kind of stock in their roster here. But are you kind of on the Arizona Cardinals train to improve this year, not in the future, this year, bet on?
Yes, absolutely. When you have a quarterback who can make plays and you surround a quarterback with talented weapons, guess what? Your team is capable of winning games. Arizona last year overachieved in a lot of ways. They were a bad team that found ways to steal some games. I wouldn't be surprised this year if they're a mediocre team that finds ways to steal some games, and that puts them in the 8, 9, 10 win category as opposed to the 7 wins where they're lined right now.
And what about Tampa Bay? Tom Brady coming down to Florida. How much of an improvement do you think this is? Obviously, Jameis Winston last year did not have a good year. So year to year, you'd think it's a pretty big improvement. But, at the same time, Tom Brady is a little bit past his prime here.
Oh, he's more than a little bit past his prime.
Tom
Brady,
nice,
he's past his prime. Let's, but it was interesting where Indy was like, there was some talk, or do we want Rivers or Brady? Rivers or Brady? Mm-hmm. And the Colts were, we want Rivers. It was a clear decision for them after looking at the film, and that is an organization whose brain trust we trust, and he's been very good in that regard. I can't say Jameis Winston had a bad year last year. Jameis Winston led the NFL in passing yards last year.
Had a lot of interceptions though.
What Jameis Winston was not able to do last year, accomplish, was to take care of the football. Mm-hmm. And that's been a criticism of him, and that is why he doesn't have a contract today. As a former number 1 overall pick and a clear NFL starter, guy's got no contract and no suitors. It's not like, I see Winston, he's definitely going to sign here. It makes sense. This is the last block for him. Maybe he ends up in Jacksonville. I think the Jags are the one team that, maybe they get someone from Minshew. But the other 31 starting jobs are pretty much, well, we'll see what New England does. But New England is clearly not moving for Newton or Winston, or they'd have gotten the guys already.
Okay, and that leads to my next question. In terms of, we bring up Jameis Winston, Cam Newton, 2 former national champion quarterbacks, 2 former Heisman Trophy winners. One of them has had an MVP caliber year. Winston's shown promise as well at the NFL. How do you think these 2 quarterbacks do here this upcoming year, battling for jobs, NFL starters?
They're screwed, both of them. Down the line, maybe not, but for the quarterback carousel has been spinning pretty fast, over the course of the first weeks of free agency. And when you think, again, neither Winston nor Newton comes on a bargain contract, Mm-hmm. And in the modern NFL, where teams are often looking to draft the guy so they can control him for 5 years, And that's why you talked about moving up into the first round to get a guy, and it's worth it to take a guy with move up into the first round to take him with a 32nd pick, as opposed to the first pick of the second round because you get that extra year. So you have all these teams with quarterbacks, their quarterback of the future that are under contract that they're not paying market salaries for yet. And you have your superstar QBs who are all getting paid, and then you have all the other QB situations in the league where it's like, all right, well, we're going to go with this guy. We're going to go with that. I mean, there's a clear plan in place. New England's the one team that does it. I would not be surprised if Jarrett Stidham is their starting quarterback. I would not be surprised if the Patriots make some low-cost move, much like the move that they made to get Tom Brady back in the day, to give them something at the QB position besides Jarrett Stidham, and they have some. They signed Hoyer, but I don't see Winston or Newton ended up in New England this year. I would be very surprised to see that happen.
Teddy, I've seen Jarrett Stidham play a lot of football, and I just don't see it. And another guy I've seen play a lot of football, both Auburn Tigers, is Cam Newton. I would take Cam Newton every single time if you told me if I could choose one quarterback for next year being New England, I would choose Cam Newton. And you just don't think they're going that route.
Well, Newton, I mean, the issue is you have to pay Newton. Why isn't Brady in New England? Brady's not in New England. I mean, besides the rift, they wouldn't pay him.
Okay.
The Patriots, as an organization, don't pay guys, and everybody knows that. I would be very surprised to see Cam Newton in New England. That being said, if I had a choice between Newton and Stidham, it's not. I mean, obviously, one's the number. Well, and Winston and Newton were both number one overall draft choices. Okay. Mm-hmm. Newton has won an MVP award. He's taken his team to the Super Bowl. He hasn't been healthy in recent years. You can't, the Patriots aren't likely to pay a guy who is not of Tom Brady's health, and Brady was as healthy as it gets. And Newton hasn't been that.
Teddy, we got, making a number here of when the NFL season starts and finishes. Does it start?
So this is the number, and I'm very interested in feedback. On this, okay. I'm asking people. My number was -110. I've heard other numbers, and I'll give them in a minute. But this is the base question: does the NFL season start and finish on time? That means the game, the season starts on September. I think it's September 10th, a Thursday, and the Super Bowl goes today. The Super Bowl goes, and all the games get played.
And all the games get played?
Yeah. Otherwise, all your futures are shot.
Okay.
If all the games don't get played, there's no reason to talk about NFL win totals. No reason to talk about who's going to win a division. The only thing that we can talk about is, and I want to check on that if division wagers are need a full season. That's something I need to check on for next week. But certainly, all the win totals will be shot. If the NFL starts and then then there's a resurgence of the virus or whatever happens come fall, and the league has to be postponed or canceled again. So it's not just will it start on time, will it start and the season progress and go through. And -110, I can't make that number any higher than pick 'em. I've got a friend that a sharp bettor who calls it -170 for the NFL season to start and finish on time. I've got another sharp friend who gave me a +150 on that same number. And I'm curious as to what your take is on it. I don't see it much higher than pick 'em. -110 is my number.
Yeah, I would put the season starting, playing all of its games, and finishing on time as the dog.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that either.
I really would. And I don't like saying that. I just the way that really our culture is kind of run with this in terms of shutting everything down, unless we kind of as a kind of culture overall move towards the economy being more important, at least somewhat, than lives, or at least more important than we're putting on it as of today. I would definitely make it the dog, Teddy.
Yeah, and which is sorry news for all of us. It's hard to obviously we're still early on in the what's going to happen and how this pandemic is going to play out. But the talk of the NBA season's going to still go, and the NHL season's going to go, and baseball is going to be fine. And once we get over this hump, come June, we'll start seeing training camps, and July 4th we'll start seeing games. And I have my concerns about that happening. I'm not convinced that's going to happen. And if it does happen, I'm not convinced that we won't see a recurrence of pandemic problems and things get canceled later on down the road.
Teddy, let me ask you this. This is the one that gives me hope here, that we can kind of at least get out the gate. The sports like golf and UFC, where it's literally UFC's two guys in a cage with the referee and no fans at it, but at least we can get the sports betting element back, the TV of sports. Golf is outside. It's a golfer in his caddy walk with no fans there. I just feel like those sports can kind of get going here because not a lot has to change. It's not breaking any rules, any laws, any suggestions by the governors, by anybody like that. Do you see that happening in the near future?
I can only give you a maybe. I mean, right now, whether it's society, whether it's the media, whether it's social media, whatever it is, we have made a collective choice that we're willing to tank the economy to save these lives. And I don't know that I don't disagree with that choice. Lives mean something. My life does, your life does, anyone that's watching this life does, as does that of our parents and our grandparents and whoever else. But the decision that has been made as a society is we're going to save lives. That's more important than money. I don't know that I disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. That said, when you start talking about what the economy looks like without sports, if sports starts and stops in the fall, we're in depression. This is not a recession, okay? And that's, I mean, the one thing we can take solace in, I say, is that if our industry crashes, everything crashes. So there's, that's not, not the most positive message I'm giving, but it means that if sports doesn't go, it's a global problem that is obviously is not a minor issue, and all resources will be thrown at it. But if there's no sports, that's a bigger global issue. So could we see the golf or the tennis or the UFC? It's possible. I wouldn't be betting the yes on those props right now.
Man, yeah. When the UFC went down, I mean, when March Madness went down, that was obviously a huge shocker. And then the UFC, I was like, man, we're in big trouble here, because if they're stopping the sports where it's even one-on-one type sports, obviously it's a big. Who knows what's going to happen down the future here, Teddy? But
let me just jump in. I don't mean to cut you off, Drew. But I mean, I know that like the Westgate Superbook had action on the various leagues around the world over the past week, and we're aggressive in trying to book action on that. And now La Liga's shutting down, and Turkey's shutting down, and Spain's shutting down, and I don't know that there's going to be anything to bet on next week at this time. Is there anything to bet? I mean, is there stuff to bet on now?
Somebody was tweeting me. There's like Australian soccer. I think there was like a Nicaraguan soccer league that was playing. But from living down in Costa Rica, I knew a lot of Nicaraguans. Like, they didn't even really like soccer. They all play baseball. So I don't know how serious that really is.
Sure. And in terms of bets, it's you're making $50 and $100 bets, not $5 and $10 bets on this stuff. There's not much out there to bet. Right now, and I'll take the under on what's going to be available to bet moving forward.
After that grim news, we do have college football game of the years, Teddy, which we can hopefully get to. He got some Auburn, Alabama's, Notre Dame, Navy. What kind of Utah, BYU, the Utes -6.5 against BYU, Florida, LSU, Florida -2.5 LSU. Just a couple games throwing off here, Teddy. But what caught your eye?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is the first look at some openers. They call them the games of the year in college football. And let's just run through some numbers. I mean, Ohio State -3 at Penn State, and I know that the Buckeyes have had their fair share of troubles coming away with wins in Happy Valley. I think Ohio State's a lot better than Penn State. I thought 3 for that was cheap. Georgia only 2 against Florida at the world's largest cocktail party. Ohio State here against Nebraska is only 13.5, and that's a -120. The 3 on Ohio State against Penn State was -115. I'm of the opinion that the Buckeyes are likely to be pretty darn good again next year. LSU's a team I think is going to, they will. So I'll have Ohio State is they're going to be every bit as good as they were, or close to it. LSU is not. They're pick 'em at Auburn.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, they're pick 'em at A&M. They're -6 at home against Texas. You get the Herman as a dog in that one. I thought LSU was a team to bet against. Stood out to me at least a little bit. What about yourself?
Well, I'm looking at Auburn, Alabama here. Alabama -7. I kind of like Alabama being at home just off of that one. Auburn, Georgia. We got Auburn +4 at Georgia. I kind of like Georgia this year. I might look to lay the 4 there. Just off the top of my head, and of course, I haven't bet any of these. Just kind of what's coming off LSU, Texas A&M. Yeah,
I haven't bet them either.
Okay, Texas A&M pick'em versus LSU. I'm with you. I would kind of look to fade LSU here. I mean, they're losing pretty much all of their talent in the passing game, right? Plus
Sure.
a couple of their top defensive guys. That defense really turned around. So LSU, Auburn. I mean, not that I'm big on Auburn this year. Might look towards Auburn. That one is in Jordan-Hare. Some also out of conference games here, Teddy. We had a couple of them.
The Florida State Boise State was a fun one to me. A little bit of revenge. You remember that game from last year when Boise came on like a freight train in the second half and blew out Florida State. The rematch on the blue turf this year. Utah BYU, always a good game. Utes -6.5 on the road in Provo there. What other non-conference stuff you're looking at? Notre Dame Stanford. Notre Dame -10 on the road at the Farm. Interesting to see what Stanford looks like this year. A team that was way down from where they've been a year ago. Let's see if David Shaw can pick that program back up. Stanford, an interesting team as a possibility for a turnaround this season.
Teddy, what about Clemson, Notre Dame? Clemson -6 at Notre Dame. You got any feelings with Clemson this year? With LSU falling back, you think Clemson keeps kind of pedal to the metal here?
I would be shocked if they didn't. From a personnel standpoint, Clemson's Alabama, and they have the best quarterback in football. I would not sell the Tigers short in any way, shape, or form. I think they'll be right there. And of course, they play in a conference where they are the dominant team in a very real way, which gives them, not a free pass into the Final Four, but certainly it gives them a better than average chance to get there. I like Clemson's chances playing in the ACC more than I would say if they were playing in the Big Ten or the SEC. Obviously, teams that are more top heavy than the ACC has been in recent seasons. It's been Clemson and everybody else. And on paper, it looks like Clemson and everybody else again this year.
Teddy, what about we had a question here on Twitter from @JordanPago, how to make power ratings. And obviously, the NFL season win totals, Teddy, you're as good as anybody in the industry on those. And obviously, is that a lot of your power ratings for just what the NFL season win totals are? And how do you go about starting your power ratings?
No, my power ratings and my win totals are really, there's a correlation, but it's not a direct correlation between my powering numbers and my win and my win total report. This is how you start making power rating numbers. Okay. And I know for a lot of people, starting is the hard part. Okay. I shouldn't say this is how you start. This is how I started. Okay. I started making power rating numbers. I started with 3 sets of numbers. I would encourage you to use a gold sheet. Okay. Gold sheet is, that's the number. I recommend their number. They're solid. But you want 3 solid sets of numbers and you average them. And that's your base point. You can find numbers all over the place. You can find my numbers. You can find Rob Vino's numbers. You can find numbers from any number of websites. Be sure that you're looking for power ratings, not power rankings. Power rankings is just going to rank the teams from 1 to 32. Power ratings is going to give you a number, points for a number for each team. Okay, so you take these 3 sets of ratings, and you can average them. You can, but the reason I'm telling you to do 3 This is just a starting point. All right, you can do that in an hour. You take 3 sets of ratings, you average them, boom, you got a starting point. And of course, you want to normalize them. Some people start at 100, some people start at at 0. You normalize them in whatever way you want to normalize them. But between the differential between the top team and the bottom team is how you're going to normalize. You take 3 sets, you average them, you make them, and then from that moment, you start making your own adjustments. All right. You got this set of ratings. The best team in the league is probably going to be somewhere between 14 and 17 points better than the worst team in the league. As a basic standpoint, that's usually where it starts at the beginning of the season, somewhere in that range. 2 touchdowns to 17 points between the number 1 ranked team and the number 32 ranked team, and then you're just making adjustments every week. All right. You're going to factor in home field. The standard home field for the NFL is 3 points. I don't usually use this standard NFL. I tend to adjust by team, but 2.5 or 3 points is a decent. Again, when you're just starting, it's a good way to start. You adjust 2.5, 3 points for home field advantage. Take Team A's power rating, take Team B's power rating, adjust for home field, and voila, you have a point spread. When you start making point spreads every week, it becomes a pattern. You get used to it, and you get good at this. And it's an exercise I encourage everyone to do. But to start, find some numbers, average them, and then start adjusting based on. And in terms of adjustments, you're going to make adjustments based on injuries. You make adjustments based on in the offseason on signings, etc. Mostly, you're going to make adjustments based on results, and you can use statistics as your primary base to make adjustments. You can do it pure statistically. You can use eye test to make adjustments. How you adjust is exclusively up to you. But from your initial set, you make adjustments, and if you do it for a little while, you'll start seeing, at least on some teams, you're like, my number's better than the market number. Hey, this is a team that I've identified as I want to be betting on this team right now. And it's absolutely, I can't think of a more useful exercise for people to do as they try to improve their expertise in betting on the NFL. Making your own power ratings is a great way to start.
I like it, Teddy. That was a great breakdown, man. And power rating's very important, guys, and somewhat correlated with the NFL season win total, which Teddy's the best in the industry. So hopefully this season gets kicked off on time and everybody can jump in on time here, Teddy. So goes with what we were talking about before. We also got a question here from @ZachWilliams on Twitter. What stocks to buy because of the restrictions with COVID-19? 2 of the stocks that come off the top of my head here would be Netflix and Amazon, just because the question has to do with restrictions with COVID-19, more staying at home, Teddy. But the problem is, you take a 5-year chart here, Teddy, and we're to the November 16 lows now, talking about the overall stock market. Mm-hmm. And in the stocks like Netflix and Amazon, I mean, they're off a little bit. I just a couple weeks ago here, Netflix, I'm looking at it now, was what, 380? Now it's only 332. So it's just not as big drop off. The market's kind of onto it. Same thing with Amazon here. Amazon's not far off of all-time highs. So when you start talking about, the drop in the value buying, market's kind of onto the economy right now needs Amazon, needs Netflix, those type of things, and it's in their sales. I mean, Amazon just said they're hiring 100,000 employees, and everybody else is dropping off. So the market reads onto that, and it's just not as value buy. But those are 2 stocks that I would look at if you got some extra money, just because it's tough to jump in, Teddy, in terms of looking to catch a falling knife. You don't want to do that with the overall stock market. And we're down as we're talking right now, Monday morning, down again here. Do you have any thoughts on buying stocks right now?
So the gaming stocks are interesting. The gaming stocks have crashed,
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at Las Vegas as a whole, unfortunately, as I don't know, there's a city in the country that's going to be more affected by this than we are, being that we're completely shut down.
No way.
I mean, everything's shut down, and we rely on tourism, and tourism is shut down. So as far as, you can make our case Orlando or Tampa Bay may get hit, like we do. I don't know.
Not as bad.
Yeah. I don't know. There's going to be any kind of city in the country that gets hit harder than Las Vegas. And the gaming stocks have been beaten. All right. I mean, they've been beaten down. Caesar was trading for like $6 or, when I was trading for $8. Those are bargain prices, but I don't know if I buy them today. I'm not convinced that, if you're going to hold, you can buy today. If you're looking to capture, if you're looking to surgical strike, get something, it's going to rise up, get rid of it. I don't know that I would do that because it's the type of investment. These gaming stocks will go back up somewhere down the line, whether it's this year, next year, 3 years, I can't tell you. But, to see Caesars and MGM and the prices that they've been at this week they're very cheap, but I don't look at that as a short-term investment.
Teddy, I agree with you. One thing I'll throw out there, though, in long-term investment, a lot of people throw out there, and a lot of people are right in terms of buying right now and long-term. As long as you can long-term hold on to this, you'll make money. The only thing I'll throw out there, though, Teddy, and I'm interested in your opinion on Wynn, on Las Vegas Sands, on MGM, is what are the possibility they go belly up and go bankrupt? Because a lot of people throw out the fact that, the Deltas of the world back in 2008, they got bailed out. People forget, if you own Delta stock, it went to zero. You lost all of your money, and then they reissued new stock. I don't think a lot of people realize that when they hear the term bailout. Do you think that these casino stocks have the chance to literally go bankrupt and go to zero and then reopen new stock?
There's always a chance, Drew.
Yeah.
And I'm not a professional investor. Okay. You're a casual investor. I'm a casual investor. But there's a big difference between the two. Sports betting, I'm good at. Stocks, sometimes yes, sometimes no. And the vagrancies of the stock market are often unique, that are very different from sports betting, because the herd mentality is something you want to go against in sports betting. But in stocks, that's how you make money, is you predict how other people are going to think, and then you get on early, and then you just, ride that train and get off.
The trend is your friend.
Yeah, exactly. When it comes to what the gaming, the one thing the gaming companies have, they have they have a brand that's worth something, and they have physical assets that are worth something. Macau's reopening again.
Are you sure?
I heard that.
I heard that too, but then when you go and look, I don't know. So
yeah, I don't know. I shouldn't say that from pure. It's absolutely happening. I've heard that.
Okay.
But to think that this isn't going to affect the gaming stocks over the course of the next year plus is just not realistic. But do I think, the gaming stocks go to zero? Do these companies actually go bankrupt? And depends how long we're out. Yeah. If we're out 6 months from now, they could go bankrupt. But if that's the case, again, like I was saying with the NFL, if sports are out and casinos are out 6 months from now, it's a bigger problem than just us.
I'm with you, Teddy. It's
the end of Las Vegas. Know
it. I can't even think about that. I'm looking out my window right here. The Bellagio has no lights on. Right. Aria, Vidara, they're guys. It is dreary scene here in Las Vegas. And again, Teddy, I'll go on a jog out there on Las Vegas Boulevard on the Strip. I'm telling you, all it is like crazy drug addicts and cops. There is a lot of cops out there. Yeah. And I'm thinking, is that just kind of because of what you're talking about? There's a lot of assets there on Las Vegas Boulevard, a lot of money tied up there, and they don't want any kind of groups coming in and making trouble, anything like that. So that's why they're going heavy police presence, right?
Well, and let's not forget the police are still working. There's not that much stuff going on around town. So you're seeing their presence on the Strip.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The officers are still working.
Yeah.
And they got to go there. They got, here's your shift. What are you going to do? Mm-hmm. All right. Here's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm not surprised by that.
Teddy, anything else you want to throw out there, man? I think we hit on all the topics we talked
Did
about.
we? Yeah, you had the agenda for today.
Yeah, we hit on all the major topics. I think we got to all the questions as well, and we appreciate you guys throwing it out there. But did you want to throw anything out, Teddy?
No, I just want to look again. Like this right now, this is the highlight of my week. All right. I like sports. I like talking about this stuff. I feel lost without it. So I thank you for taking time out of your day to hang out with us. And I appreciate the questions. We'll do any sports betting questions you have, we'll answer. Next Monday, just tweet them. As you mentioned, at Drew Martin Bets or at Teddy_covers. Give us a tweet and we'll do our best to answer. And stay safe out there. Stay sane out there. We're talking about staying safe. Staying sane is a piece of the equation. How you doing in that regard, Drew? You get a little, no beer and no TV makes Homer go crazy, or you're all right?
I'm hanging in there, Teddy. I mean, these 6 months that we're throwing out there, I don't know that I'm going to be hanging in there. So we need sports back, and we need it back in a big way. So
you need both, brother.
Man, but hey, we're making it through, and we appreciate everybody throwing out the nice comments on Twitter and in the comments below on YouTube. And we'll keep this run every Monday morning, the opening line report, guys. So like Teddy said, stay safe. Best of luck, and we'll talk next Monday.